Time now for my 2010 Big 12 team-by-team previews to continue, and we'll now focus on Oklahoma State. Even though he's never beaten Oklahoma or Texas as a head coach, Mike Gundy still has had a lot of success in Stillwater. Number one, last year the Cowboys did win 9 ball games, got them to one of the better non-BCS games out there in the Cotton Bowl, even though they lost. And entering last year's season finale in the regular season against the Sooners, actually had OSU one victory away from perhaps claiming one of those at-large spots for a BCS game. That game that close, but they ended up losing rather decisively to Oklahoma, thus settling for the Cotton Bowl. Number 2, Gundy has done a fantastic job in recruiting since he's gotten there. And number 3, he has shown integrity when needed, making changes both in assistant coaches as well as disciplining players when needed. So Mike Gundy has done quite a bit, and kind of hard to believe this is year number 6 for Mike Gundy. Now, Gundy this year has some coaching to do because there are a lot of new faces offensively and defensively. We'll begin on the offensive side, and we're going to talk about the quarterback, Brandon Weeden, who we did see last year against Colorado, but that was the only game where he saw significant playing time and actually did quite well. But remember, it's Colorado. Last year in that Colorado game on national television on a Thursday night, Weeden threw for 4 touchdown passes in leading Oklahoma State to a victory. That's the good news. The bad news is we don't know if Weeden is going to be able to do that on a consistent basis, and in that game we didn't really see Weeden do a lot of improvisation. I'm not trying to say he has to be like Zach Robinson, okay? He doesn't have to get out of the pocket all the time in order to make plays happen. But it would be nice to see if he can become a mobile quarterback, at least not just a pure pocket passer. Weeden, keep in mind, is 26 years old. He was a former product of the New York Yankee farm system, so he's older than several NFL quarterbacks, just to give you an idea of his age. But he is just a junior, so if he can follow the 2010 season up with a good showing, 2011, I think, will really hold a lot of big things for Weeden and that Cowboy offense. Kendall Hunter, they say that he's going to be 100%, at least as of right now. Hunter, as we mentioned, had the big year in 2008, but was very limited because of the foot injury. Did play at times, but was not the same back. That was very obvious. In his spot last year was Keith Toston, who actually ended up having a pretty good season. In fact, was a first-team All-Big 12 selection for the Cowboys, but he has now moved on. So for Hunter, he becomes the main guy again. And of course, a lot of his success will be predicated upon the offensive line, which we're going to dive into in just a few seconds. But Hunter, can he become the Kendall Hunter of old? If he can, then Oklahoma State's offense, I think, will be better than expected entering 2010. Those first few games of September against some cream puffs will be able to tell us. Now, as far as the receivers go, look, you're not going to be able to replace Dez Bryant. He's one of those rare receivers that comes along just because of his size, just because of his speed, because of his hands and everything he did. I think, though, Oklahoma State will have several receivers that will be complementary to each other. Justin Blackmon should be a vital weapon for Weeden to throw to. And also Josh Cooper, if he can stay healthy. The product from Mustangs had an injury-riddled career, but he has a lot of speed. So Cooper returns for the Cowboys. And also Hubert Anayim, I think he's probably the best receiver of the 3. He's back as well. So all the Oklahoma State wide receivers are underclassmen, and I'm going to mention 2011 more times than once because I think that's the year, as young as Oklahoma State is, they'll return nearly everybody in 2011 as far as the offense, except of course for Kendall Hunter because he's a senior, but still the future looks very good for the Cowboys. Offensive line this year is going to be extremely young, and I think a big focus will be on Nick Martinez. We're going to talk about him in just a little bit when I go over my FYIs for Oklahoma State, but he'll play the left tackle spot. Losing Russell Okung really hurts. They lose a lot of linemen from that 2009 team, but Okung was a high first-round draft pick, so they have to replace him. Offensive line, I've heard that they're very talented, but of course they're very raw. So it'll be a year of growing pains, I think, in the interior department for Oklahoma State on the offensive side. Looking at the defense, I've already mentioned how much they improved from a year ago, but just like the offense, they have a lot of fresh faces, and that including in the linebacking department where you don't have Andre Sexton anymore. But Ori Lemon, who last year had a devastating knee injury, didn't see him. Supposedly, he's supposed to be fully 100% entering this year. We'll have to wait and see on that. Ori Lemon had 90 tackles back in 2008, but again, the injury last year was a big minus for that Oklahoma State offense, even though as a unit they improved. Imagine how much better they would have been if they had Lemon. But fortunately for Bill Young, the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, they do have Lemon this year. Now, I think that the secondary for Oklahoma State is going to be speedy, quick, but inexperienced. But one guy I do think that has the potential to really progress is Markel Martin. He'll play the strong safety spot for Oklahoma State. And the defensive end spot, one of the more talented players, and that is Hugo Chanasa at a defensive end spot, had 6.5 sacks last year for the Cowboys. And OSU is still waiting on the news of Jamie Blatnick, who was a part of the Big 12 Media Days for the Cowboys, but had an off-the-field altercation with a former Cowboy player. A felony charge, it looks like, is going to be filed in this case, and Mike Gundy's waiting to see how this plays out. But from what I've heard, Blatnick is not participating in practice, but has not been kicked off the team as of August 13th when we're doing this report. He's still a member of the Cowboys. So Gundy, again, his integrity is going to be tested. He's made the right calls so far with players getting into trouble. Blatnick, a returning starter, and what a blow it would be if Blatnick is not allowed to play because of this altercation. Going over some FYIs for Oklahoma State. Number one, we're talking about Kendall Hunter. Can he be that back from 2008 that resembled All-American caliber? Sometimes after players sustain serious injuries, which Hunter had with his foot last year, they end up rehabbing and end up picking up from where they left off. But sometimes they are never the same player, especially at running back, when a player suffering a serious injury may not have that explosiveness that they had during their prime. All eyes will be on the backfield and on Kendall Hunter. Granted, his offensive line will need to help out, and granted, the receivers will need to do their part to take pressure off of Hunter, but Hunter, again, will have a lot of eyes on him. Number two, Nick Martinez on my FYIs. I put him down. I know Oklahoma State's going to have a lot of new offensive linemen. They only have one returning starter up front. But Martinez's job is very important. The former JUCO player will be playing left tackle, a spot that Okung had occupied. That means that Martinez will be protecting the blind side of Weeden. And Weeden, as I mentioned earlier, we don't know if he's going to have a whole lot of mobility, so Martinez occupies a major responsibility. He's 6'4", 316 pounds, a former tight end. Martinez occupies that pressure cooker spot on the offensive line of left tackle. If Weeden gets a lot of heat, look at that position of Martinez. That means that he may be getting too much pressure on his side, or he's just flat out not doing his job. So Martinez, he's not going to be Russell Okung, but he needs to be at least serviceable. And finally, number three on my FYIs, the OSU secondary, which is speedy, which is quick, but you cannot replace experience, and simply put, this secondary does not have much on that side. In 2011, things look pretty good because they'll have them all back. But the future is now for Oklahoma State. Thankfully for the Cowboys, we're going to dive into the schedule in a second. Those first 3 games are going to be layups. However, the late September showdown on national television against Texas A&M will be that secondary's first real test. Watch the secondary because Gerard Johnson of A&M, a very good arm. Jeff Fuller, a terrific receiver for the Aggies, will test that secondary unlike they've been tested before. If Oklahoma State can contain Texas A&M's wide receivers, then this secondary will prove that they have grown up in a hurry and that they're going to be talked about a lot. The secondary is going to be a huge focus for the Oklahoma State defense because they're so young. Looking at the 2010 Oklahoma State schedule, the non-conference part of it is ridiculously easy. September the 4th, the opener, OSU will host maybe the worst Pac-10 team, that's Washington State, as the Cougars will visit Stillwater. Should be a win right there for OSU. The next two games should be victories as well. September 11th, hosting Troy, and September 18th against interstate rival Tulsa. 3 games should be 3-0 for Oklahoma State. Then the Pokes have 12 days to get ready to play their Big 12 opener on a Thursday night nationally televised ESPN game. Is on the 30th. They'll host Texas A&M. I have this game going either or because I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring shootout. A&M will probably be favored, but remember, the game will be at Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater. 8 days later, Oklahoma State wraps up their non-conference schedule with the game. It'll be on a Friday night at Louisiana. This is the school formerly known as Louisiana Lafayette, the school formerly known as Southwest Louisiana. Anything you want to call them, their nickname is still the Raging Cajuns. Should be a victory, though, even though it's a road game for OSU. And then October 16th, a place that has given OSU headaches in the past. They have to travel to Lubbock on that day to play their first Big 12 road game of the year, and that's at Texas Tech. This is either or, just because Texas Tech, just like Oklahoma State, will have a year of transition. And then October 23rd, I just don't see OSU beating Nebraska at all. This will be one of the more Nebraska talented teams we've seen in a while. Even though it's in Stillwater, Nebraska's a better team. Nebraska will win. October 30th, though, a shot at a victory against a lesser opponent, the Kansas State Wildcats, but the game is in Manhattan. November 6th should be a win as they'll host Baylor. And then November 13th at Texas, no chance for OSU to win this one. November 20th at Kansas against first-year head coach Turner Gill. This is an either-or game. This is about as 50-50 as it gets. And then November 27th, hosting Oklahoma, and I know it's bedlam, and I know funny things have happened, but OU is a much better team. I have OU winning this game. Looking at the best case, worst case scenarios. First, the worst case scenario for Oklahoma State is that they would not go to a bowl game. They would finish 5-7. That is, if they can't win any of those swing games. That's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, and OSU fans I don't think would have a problem with this, 9-3. That is, if they can beat A&M, find a way to win at Tech, and win at the Kansas schools, I think 9-3 is possible. Overall, though, I think the most likely scenario is that they go 7-5. The Big 12 South is just too tough to expect OSU to finish in the upper half of this division. I actually have them finishing 5th, but I also have OSU going to a minor bowl game. 2010 will be a year of winning and losing for Oklahoma State. 2011, with all the talent returning, looks like a much brighter forecast.